Good morning, Sunny Meadow Farm. The rooster's crow echoed across the dewy fields as the sun peeked over the big green hills. Pip the little pig burst out of the barn door, snout first, wearing his favorite blue overalls. Today was the Grand Farm Parade, the biggest event of the whole year, and Pip had been planning it for weeks. Everything had to be absolutely perfect. Or so he hoped. Inside the barn, Pip had drawn an enormous chalkboard plan covered in arrows, sparkles, and smiley faces. He pointed to each section with a little stick. First, the ducks will waddle in a line, then the goats will do their jumping act, and finally the sheep will spell out Sunny Meadow with their woolly bodies. Bee the bunny raised a paw. That sounds amazing, Pip. But have you told the animals yet? Out in the sunny farmyard, all the farm animals were happily going about their morning routines. Cluck the rooster was polishing his spectacles and practicing his march. The ducks splashed in the pond, the goats bounced on the fence, and the sheep nibbled clover. Pip gathered everyone in a circle and announced the grand parade plan with the biggest, most enthusiastic grin his little snout could manage. The animals cheered and honked and baa-ed with excitement. Cluck puffed out his chest proudly. I shall lead the parade. I am clearly the most magnificent creature on this farm. Bee rolled her eyes just a little. But as Pip looked up to check the weather, he noticed something odd creeping across the sky. Not rain clouds, but swirling, spinning puffs of blue and white that sparkled strangely in the morning light. Down from the swirling clouds came Whirly, a tiny spinning tornado with big googly eyes and the goofiest grin imaginable. He looped over the barn, made a weather vane spin backwards, and knocked Cluck's spectacles clean off his beak. Whee! Whirly shouted gleefully, zooming around the farmyard. What a fun-looking place. I want to play. The animals scattered in every direction as leaves and feathers flew everywhere. Whirly didn't mean any harm, he just didn't know his own strength. Every time he giggled, a tiny gust scattered the ducks into the vegetable garden. Every time he sneezed, the goats tumbled backwards into the haystack. Pip chased after him, waving his arms. Stop. We have a parade today. But Whirly just thought Pip was playing tag and zipped away even faster, laughing in a high whistling voice. Then, with one enormous playful whoosh, Whirly scooped up the ducks, the goats, and the sheep and sent them tumbling, bouncing, and quacking straight into Whirly Woods, the tall enchanted forest at the edge of the farm. Pip, Bee, and Cluck stared open-mouthed at the suddenly empty farmyard. The parade animals were gone. Cluck fainted dramatically onto a hay bale. The parade is ruined, he wailed to the clouds above. Inside the farmhouse, Farmer Rosa was peacefully sipping her morning tea and reading her gardening almanac, completely unaware of the windswept mayhem outside. Pip knew they had to rescue the animals before Rosa noticed and before the afternoon parade began. He turned to his friends with determined eyes. Okay, team. We're going into Whirly Woods, we're finding our friends, and we're bringing everyone home. Are you with me? Bee tightened her polka dot headband and nodded bravely. Cluck adjusted his spectacles and stood up very straight, though his knees were wobbling slightly. Together, the three friends stepped into Whirly Woods. The trees here glowed with soft golden and purple light, and friendly little mushrooms dotted the path like stepping stones. It was actually rather beautiful, but the rustling leaves and strange whistling sounds reminded them that Whirly was still nearby. They followed the sound of quacking and found the first surprise. The ducks were happily bouncing on enormous springy flowers in a place called the Giggle Glade. Every time a flower bounced them up, they quacked with delight. They weren't scared at all. They were having the time of their lives. Pip laughed. Okay, ducks, parade time. Getting the bouncy ducks to stop bouncing, however, turned out to be much harder than expected. Pip tried to grab a duck, boing. He got launched into a flower and bounced straight into a bush. Bee tried a calm, gentle approach, holding out a carrot, boing. The duck grabbed the carrot and bounced away happily. Cluck announced in his most commanding rooster voice that it was time to go. The ducks bounced right over his head. Finally, Bee had a brilliant idea. What if we make the flowers bounce with us toward the exit? Bee grabbed the biggest flower stem and bent it just so, creating a bouncing chain. One by one, Pip, Cluck, and all 6 ducks bounced along in a perfectly wobbly line through the woods. It was ridiculous and wonderful at the same time. Even Cluck was giggling between his dramatic announcements of, "I meant to do that." They bounced right out of Giggle Glade and into the next part of Whirly Woods, the Muddy Maze. The Muddy Maze was exactly what it sounded like. A winding, squelching, impossibly twisty path through enormous mud pits connected by wobbly rope bridges. And right in the middle of it, 5 goats were gleefully jumping from bridge to bridge, making it wobble even more. Mud splattered everywhere. One goat wore a mud hat. Another had made a mud necklace. They seemed perfectly content. Pip put his hands on his hips. Of course they love it here. Getting the goats out required a combination of bravery, balance, and bribery. Bee carefully tiptoed across the wobbliest bridge while Cluck covered his eyes and scooted across backwards. Pip bravely waded through the shallower mud pits, sinking up to his knees and making magnificent squelching sounds every step of the way. The ducks, naturally, swam through the mud like it was a perfectly normal pond. The goats followed the crowd, curious as always. On the other side of the muddy maze ran a beautiful sparkly stream. The whole group, pigs, ducks, goats, and 2 very muddy rabbits, plunged in gratefully. Well, Cluck didn't plunge. He stepped in very slowly, 1 toe at a time, announcing each step was perfectly intentional and graceful. Pip laughed so hard bubbles came out of his snout. Clean and refreshed, they counted the animals. Ducks, check. Goats, check. Now, where were the sheep? A trail of fluffy white wool tufts led them deeper into the woods and down into the woolly hollow, a gentle mossy valley with soft grass and the tiniest waterfall Pip had ever seen. There, 7 sheep were arranged in a neat circle, fast asleep. The soft rustling of the enchanted trees had lulled them into the coziest nap imaginable. They were snoring in perfect harmony. Even the musical snoring was surprisingly pleasant to listen to. Whirly spiraled down into the hollow, his googly eyes blinking with surprised delight at all the animals. "Oh, you followed me. Are we playing?" He whistled happily. Pip took a deep breath and spoke calmly. "Whirly, we're not playing. These are our friends and they need to come home. We have a parade." A parade, Whirly, with marching and music and everyone watching. Whirly's eyes went very wide. A parade? He had never seen a parade. Pip described the parade in the most wonderful, colorful, exciting way he possibly could. The music, the marching, the cheering crowd, the ducks in formation, the goats jumping, the sheep spelling Sunny Meadow in big woolly letters. Whirly spun faster and faster with excitement. "Can I come? Can I be in the parade?" he asked in a tiny, hopeful whistle. Pip smiled his biggest smile. "I think, actually, you'd make a pretty amazing parade surprise." Whirly nodded eagerly and, concentrating very carefully for the first time, sent out the gentlest, warmest, coziest little breeze imaginable, like a soft sunrise whisper across the valley. One by one the sleeping sheep blinked open their eyes, stretched their woolly legs, and yawned the most enormous yawns. Then they saw Pip and trotted straight over, bumping their fluffy heads against him affectionately. Whirly giggled proudly at his own gentleness. He'd never tried that before. With all the animals gathered, 7 sheep, 6 ducks, 5 goats, plus Pip, Bee, Cluck, and 1 very eager little wind spirit, the group set off back through Whirly Woods. Whirly zoomed ahead, clearing sticks and branches from the path and spinning fallen leaves into beautiful little spirals as decorations. For the first time in his whole windy life, he was helping instead of whooshing things sideways by accident. It felt absolutely wonderful. Back at Sunny Meadow Farm, Farmer Rosa had come outside to find the farmyard empty and was scratching her head under her straw hat in total puzzlement. Then she heard it, distant quacking, baying, clucking, and the high happy whistling of the wind. Over the hill came the most spectacular, unexpected parade she had ever seen, led by a tiny pink pig in blue overalls, grinning from ear to ear. Rosa burst into the warmest, biggest laugh imaginable. The grand farm parade was even better than Pip had planned. The ducks waddled in a perfect V formation, The goats leaped over each other in spectacular arcs, and the sheep arranged themselves to spell Sunny Meadow in big fluffy letters on the grass. Cluck marched at the very front, crowing gloriously. And Whirly? He became the world's very first parade wind spirit, spinning colorful leaves and flower petals into the air like the best confetti ever. As the golden sun dipped low over Sunny Meadow Farm, everyone gathered by the big old oak tree for lemonade and apple cookies that Farmer Rosa had baked that morning. Whirly curled up on a branch, smaller and softer now, yawning for the very first time in his life. "Will you come back to the parade next year?" Pip asked. Whirly's googly eyes sparkled. "I'll bring better confetti," he whispered, and everyone cheered until the stars came out.